Everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the first ever webinar on Collision Repair's Open Dialogue series. And a special thank you to Tim Morgan, the Chief Operating Officer of Spanesi Americas, for being our first ever guest. So before we dive into the introductions, I'm going to tell you just a little bit about how the next hour is going to work. Tim and I will handle the first portion of the hour on our own. You just need to sit back, listen, take some notes if you need to. Follow along with our discussion, and then after we will open the floor to questions. So if you're watching from Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, be sure to drop your questions as you watch, and we'll be sure to try to answer them on the air when we get to that part of the webinar. So that's how things are going to work. Let's get to the introductions then. So I'm Allison Rogers. I'm the assistant editor of Collision Repair magazine. I work on content for both the print magazine and our website. I'm one of the faces behind all the stories on our site, in our e-zine, and in our magazines. And let me just pull Tim up here. We've got Tim here with us today, and he is the Chief Operating Officer of Spanesi Americas. He's got lots of experience in the collision repair industry. He's been an active member for more than 40 years, but we'll let him take it away and tell you a little bit more about himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. As with everything that Spanesi does, we always like to be first. So most people in the industry probably know me. I've been in this industry for 44 years. I started at the age of 14. Actually, when I was in high school, I was told I should go to college because the people in the auto body program, weren't college material, and I had to have my parents go to the school board and fight to be able to get me in the collision repair program. And I can tell you, since the age of 14, collision repair has been very good to me. I had my own body shop for over 10 years. I was a director at a college in Cleveland, Ohio, and ran their collision repair program for about 4 years before I went into, if you want to call it, corporate America. I worked 14 years as a global director of training for a large global corporation. I left that company to run 2 other equipment companies that were also global, but working their way out of bankruptcy, helped them get out of bankruptcy, and sold. And then along the way, I met the Spanesis in about 1997. And we hooked up in the beginning of 2012, and they hired me as a consultant to see about opening a business in North America and what it would look like. And then finally in about July or August, we met and decided that we should go forward with it. So I opened the company here with the Spanesi family in September of 2012.
Awesome. So you've been with Spanesi for about almost 8 years now, narrowing in on that, or working with them at least from the American side. So just to touch on a little bit on the chaos before we get more into it later on. But before everything started happening with the pandemic, what was Spanesi's main focus for this year? What were you guys planning on tackling? What was your main mission in 2020?
Well, at the end of 2019, I worked very heavily with the U.S. government on the USMCA program for the Fair Trade Act, trying to get out of the NASDAQ program. We actually even had the Canadian consulate here for lunch, along with the Mexican consulate, to show them what Spanesi does and how it would affect both the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. I had put in place Constantino Uliano up there in Canada to be an area manager for us, because we expect, we're always growing in Canada. As we grow and expand, we knew eventually we'd have to put some employees up there. We put some feet on the street to be able to help. We're expanding up in Canada. And then all of a sudden someone mentions COVID.
Of course. What about trends in the industry? You talk more about expanding in Canada. That's been a big focus, of course, but industry trends, has there been anything in the collision repair, whether it be frame and metal repair, or because I know that's a big area of expertise for you. along with the paint booth side and everything at Spanesi. What sort of products has Spanesi been focusing on really in the last little while and plans to focus on in the future?
Well, I think we're unique in the industry because we have a 360 concept, which means we can focus on your complete business. We offer training, we offer consulting on how to be able to better operate your business or streamline with some processes beyond just the piece of equipment. We look at trying to help a customer from start to finish in their shop of what needs to be done. That's why we do offer frame machines, we offer welders, we offer spot welders, we offer spray booths, preparation areas. We've been able to expand that in the Canadian market since 2012. We've grown from 1 distributor up there to 4. And we're continuing to expand, like I said, until we ran into a roadblock that everyone's run into.
Of course. Has there been any trends or updates to technology specifically that Spanesi's tackling, or have you guys is that in the past for you? Or are you still working on adapting?
Well, we're always innovating and always trying to come out with new products. And when you look at our new pull-up system, which is our cold repair process, more and more vehicle manufacturers are finding that there's issues with repairs because of using, say, a stud welder to be able to pull out a dent, and then the back of the panel ends up with not the corrosion protection being removed and that sort of thing, and then it could void the warranty of the vehicle. The electric stud guns could also damage a computer component. And more as the vehicles get more computer components, it can be very tricky. So with using our glue pull-up system, which is unique to the industry because we can also pull structural with it. It's a special dedicated glue that we designed. Took 2 years to get the glue perfected. We actually are not damaging the back of the panel, so you're not losing any corrosion protection. And we're finding more and more vehicle manufacturers turning around and asking for this type of system.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Moving back on to the serious stuff, of course. That's all anyone's talking about still is COVID. Spanesi's been kind of, like you said, you guys like to be the first. You've been very active in your relief efforts from the beginning. Could you kind of tell us, when did Spanesi start reacting to the pandemic? When did you realize it was an issue? And what were sort of the first steps that you took to combat the slowdowns or any sort of business aspect of it?
Well, I'd have to say, I mean, and I don't know in Canada, but in the news here, they keep talking about the curve and getting on the bottom side of it. Well, because we're a global company, I was able and fortunate enough to see this coming. Because it was in the middle of January that our company in Italy had to close for at least 30 days. In China had to close for 30 days. Our company in Italy then in March ended up having to close for 1 week. Luckily, none of our employees globally have been affected personally by having the disease, if you want to call it.
That's great news.
But it has, put some brakes on some of the projects that we started, and, it has affected business. But we've been really more concerned about our customer. We've been working hard to be able to see what was going on. Here in our building, the President Trump on the 15th of March ordered, basically a national shutdown, which I would never believe in my life that would ever happen. So here, as the chief operating officer, we put social distancing in effect right away. I have employees that were of risk because of age or medical condition that they're now working remotely. We thought at first we'd be able to offer some training here and be able to take, as the shops were slow, be able to bring some people in and do training. But with that shutdown here, some of the hotels nearby were forced to close. So there was no way to accommodate people here. So for the past month and a half or so that we've been on lockdown, We have turned around and actually been going out in the shop, trying to work in the shop to be able to get some of the training done for customers. Again, using social distancing purposes, our policies in place. We've been even forced here in the building when we're doing some training. We're right now doing some training with our own employees. If they're within 6 feet of each other, they're wearing masks. Because actually here in Illinois now, it's mandatory if you're in a area, you have to have a mask or something on when you go outside. So we've been also, working through several different steps along the way. We have thermometers at the door. When a visitor comes in, we're checking their temperature. We have all trucking that's arriving. We don't let them in the building. We have them call before they back to the dock so we can get them unloaded. So it's really changed the normal operation of the business here.
It's great to hear the customer support aspect there. I know that you mentioned working with the shops and updating. Well, training may not be an option for flying them out and coming to your actual facility to receive that training. What about shop renovations or updated technology inside the shop? Have you seen that as sort of something that's being pursued?
Well, I've actually had several shops here in the US and a couple in Canada that have actually either shut down or partially shut down and are totally revamping their system. We have one shop in Kansas that they totally shut it down. We're putting in new spray booths, new lifts, new welding equipment, and new frame racks as they remodel the complete building.
So even though slowdowns are obviously awful for business, can actually be good in the long run with the renovations. Just trying to put a positive spin there.
Well, I mean, there's lots of opportunity, and the person who's gonna sit and wait and do nothing is obviously not gonna get anything in return. So we have shops that are out there, either renovating or repairing their equipment, or trying to do some positive things. So on the opposite side of this, they can make a great comeback. Because it is going to come back.
Yes, this won't be forever. So how else? We know that Spanesi has actually unveiled a webpage for business resources for both businesses in Canada and the US that are looking for financial assistance or suffering from pandemic pressure, anything like that. So could you tell us a little bit more about the webpage that Spanesi created and just sort of the information that it's out there for shops?
Sure. One of the other first things that we did even before we got that webpage off the ground is we partnered with the Collision Industry Foundation, who's here in the US, and their focus is on helping the technician that may be out of a job, that they can apply for a grant. So we built them a video to be able to launch that to the market. And even this week, there was another donation, another large donation. It started out with CCC, put in $100,000 to match what CIF had. Spanesi Americas has donated. I donated personally. There's been a lot of personal donations. And then yesterday, there was another $25,000 donation so that technicians can apply through an application of, what's their hardship and be able to get some help there. And then we went the next step and we built a business website. There was so much information shuffling around in the US and Canada that we built a website with resources, and the website is business.spanesiamericas.com, to where you can go, click on you're either in Canada or you're in the US, and there's some resources there for how to be able to apply for what we call here a PPP program, which was a payroll protection program. And other grants to be able, from the federal governments, to be able to process and be able to try and get some grants. We were lucky here at Spanesi Americas. We worked diligently around the clock as the applications came out, and I'll tell you, actually, I ended up filing 5 applications by the time they took and finally pressed send, because they kept changing the application every 5 minutes. But we were lucky enough to be in the first round before the money ran out, which was very helpful. I personally worked with 10 other companies that had questions on how to apply, what do I need to do to apply, and we weren't even able to go through our normal bank. I actually had to reach out to a local bank here because the larger banks were going after the larger clients, as I'm sure you've seen in the news, where some people are already having to give the money back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on Spanese's resource page here, business.spanesi-americas.com, we've got Canadian resources, Canada's COVID-19 economic response plan, and then also the business credit availability program, some information for shops on there, as well as any of the shops in the US, if there's anyone from the States watching here. There's a lot of information on there for businesses if you are under pandemic pressure and need some assistance.
Well, and we've also I've gone to our typical lenders, if you want to call it, the leasing companies that we use here in the US, and our distributors in Canada also have leasing companies that they normally use. And we've gone and asked for some help for someone who needs new equipment, or maybe to be able to put a payment on hold. So we have programs right now that we're running that we can get you 90 days before you have to start paying, or even up to 6 months with some of the plans that are out there, so that we can all get past this bump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said you've been working firsthand with shops too, with support and everything. So everyone, that resource is there. Feel free to use it. We know that just moving on to more pandemic protocols, and a big topic of discussion with everything that's been introduced. There's so many shops that are adapting their services to try and cater to the customer who's obviously paranoid with the not paranoid, they're scared of the virus right now because it's out there, and the disinfection, whatnot. It's people are scared. So they're trying to adapt these procedures and whatnot. And a lot of people are saying, with the vehicle drop-off being so easy for the customer and whatnot, that a lot of these things might stick around. You guys mentioned that there may be some training issues there were some training issues that you ran into, what with the hotels being closed, you couldn't fly people out and whatnot. Do you think there might be any problems in the future, or not problems, but challenges you might have to face, or things that maybe need to be adapted as adjusted changes to actual everyday routine?
Well, typically here, if we're doing a hands-on training class here in our training center, we would have between 10 and 12 students at one time for 1 to 2 instructors. And I can see now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to drop that back in half. People are not going to want to be in a close proximity of other people, especially if they don't know. Once this, like I said, once we get on the other side of this bump, I don't know when we'll stop checking people's temperatures when they come through the door. It is something to be concerned about. Personal hygiene is something to be concerned about. Just hearing our president tell people to wash their hands. It's like everybody takes that for granted, but it can cause germs to spread. But I really think that the paranoia, if that's what you want to call it, or the concern.
It's a concern. Yeah, that's a much better way to put it. Paranoia is the.
It's going to be there for a while. One of the things that I'm really concerned about ourselves right now is, what's a trade show look like in the future?
That's been a big topic of discussion here as well. We had a survey go out, and people, we're doing a webinar right now, and people are tuned, and we've got people watching from home. And Dave Lure is someone in the industry that's been doing things like that with the webinar, and all of these industry events like IBIS being moved to an online format, being so easy for someone to tune in. The question of what's it going to look like with so many people in a cramped space when we could just go this route as well. There's lots of different aspects to it.
Well, like our space draw is tomorrow for SEMA. And last night there was a news announcement that the largest automotive trade show in the world, which is Automechanik in Germany, was canceled and postponed till September 2021. Mm-hmm. So what does SEMA look like? What do you do on the show floor? You're obviously going to have to. We have a very large size booth at SEMA, so if SEMA goes through, we're going to have to make sure that we have things in place for social distancing. Probably going to have to show less equipment because we're going to need more room. Our booth, if you've been to SEMA, you see we draw a lot of people, and sometimes they're standing room only. And now I'm starting to wonder, what is the real future going to look like?
Mm-hmm. It's a big question for a lot of people. All the shops that I've been talking to are talking about whether they should A lot, actually, going back to a survey result actually that we're sharing on collision repair, it said that a lot of people have felt that the pandemic has actually accelerated approach toward adopting a lot of online repair infrastructure in Canada, which not really a challenge here per se, but it's just been something that it's been, obviously, as the wave of technology becomes greater throughout the years, then it's going to continue to grow. So the challenge here has been kind of adapting that. And a lot of shops have said that what with switching to online estimation with or photo estimation, getting people to send in photos, whatnot, all those systems they've been implementing, that a lot of this could translate into maybe a contactless pickup drop-off option for a lot of shops. So it's really a lot of questions up in the air right now. But like you said, it's not going to last forever. And there is a bright side to this, and we will make it out, hopefully stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to take just our two countries and stop the economic process for 30 to 60 days is obviously going to put a bump in the road. But if you looked at the economies before 6 to 8 weeks ago, both economies across the borders were good. We were seeing our numbers growing and going up, and we're really excited about the future of collision repair in both the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, even globally too, as auto industries begin to reopen, they were kind of seeing the numbers kind of go back up. China was listed as the largest auto industry in the world, and when Wuhan began to, the epicenter of everything, began to open back up, they started seeing things slowly grind back to normal, slowly but surely. So there is an optimistic side to this. Obviously it would have been greater if this never happened, but it's a learning lesson.
Well, you never know what's going to happen in life sometime.
Exactly. So we'd like to open the floor up to questions now. If anyone has anything that they'd like to ask Tim, whether it be anything with industry based, looking for advice financially, whether if you regard to COVID or anything like that, feel free to submit your questions here. We'll just continue talking COVID if questions don't continue to roll in. So feel free, if you don't want to hear more COVID stuff, ask some more questions about the industry. And Tim in frame repair is his expertise in metallurgy. He's, of course, like he said, Spanesi's got a 360 approach to the entire collision repair aspect. They do spray booths, they do frame repair, they've got it measuring and alignment, they've got it all. So ready for questions? If anyone
and more, while we're waiting for questions, we should talk about actually measuring a vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
In the facility today, that vehicle, obviously, and if we look in a post-COVID situation, the vehicle's going to come in, it's going to have to be cleaned. And then in a blueprinting process, after that vehicle is cleaned, to be able to go into the repair process, that vehicle needs to be measured and measured electronically to be able to find out if there's damage that isn't being found. We find from dealing with the shops that we're dealing with today, or when we're out doing demonstrations, that 6 out of 10 cars that we measure, we find some structural damage in it, whether it be in a core support or an apron or something that wouldn't have been detected because the technician looked at it and said, it doesn't look like it's bent. But the measuring system is another key factor for a body shop today to be able to make sure that they're repairing the vehicle back to a pre-accident condition. So I think that's another thing, if we back up a little bit and talk about some key things in the future of what needs to be done, would be the fact that every single vehicle needs to be measured. You start to look at all the sensors that are on there for the ADAS systems that are now rapidly being launched out and having to be calibrated. You can't calibrate a car until it has a wheel alignment and the wheel alignment's correct. But did you know that before you can do the wheel alignment, the structure has to be correct? And in some instances, we find that on, say, a Toyota Camry, for instance. So if you look at a Toyota Camry, for instance, if you replace the quarter panel, the actual sensor mount for the ADAS system on the back, or the sensor, is a separate part. How do we locate that part? We can't do it without a measuring system because we need to be able to mirror the image from the other side because there's no data out there for it. So, seems like we've got a question that came in.
Yeah, we've got a great question from Ben Johnson here. So he wants to know, Tim, what trends do you see relative to ADAS and the need for calibration after repair? do you see most shops doing those calibrations or farming them out and to dealerships or to hub and spoke relationships with specialists who do that?
I think I partially answered that by saying the vehicle needs to be measured before it goes to, to have a wheel alignment, because we have to make sure the sensors are in the right position. We're actually working here to be able to collect some of the sensor locations in our data to make sure that they can be put back in position. But if I start to look at the whole ADAS situation and the room that you need to be able to do the calibration, the tools that you need to have, I think you're going to see that, as with most body shops that send their alignment out, that's probably going to be a sublet also. I don't see every shop having the room to invest or the or wanting to make the investment into that type of equipment. I think you're going to see a lot more shops that are specialized in that type of situation, or the vehicle having to go back to the dealership per se for the repair. But I can tell you this, currently I've worked with several of our customers that had a vehicle, and when they would call the dealer wasn't even prepared to be able to do an ADAS calibration.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, yeah. We've heard a lot about that too, that the future of that sort of part of the industry could be a lot specialized repairs and things like that. So it's interesting that you've also seen that sort of prediction. We've got another question here from Harold Then from Calgary. He wants to know your thoughts on blueprinting in shops for the estimation process.
Well, first, I don't like the word estimate, to be honest, but we need to do repair planning. And to start the repair planning, it's very important that you start, first of all, again, post-COVID, even currently, the vehicle needs to be cleaned first, and that's inside and out. I do warn shops out there, because I've heard it being said here in the US that they can un-COVID your vehicle. I'd be very careful and look into what the requirements are for that, because I think you need to almost be a certified exterminator or something to be able to have the right chemicals to be able to do that. But to answer Harold's question, first and foremost, the vehicle needs to be measured so that we have a good understanding of where it needs to go in the repair process. Does it need a frame machine? Does it need a pull? Which brings me to the point that if I'm measuring the vehicle pre-repair, I find damage, I'm going to have to measure the vehicle again during the repair and then post-repair, so I can prove to the customer that it's been put back to a pre-accident condition. What fasteners on the vehicle are one-time fasteners? Several vehicle manufacturers now are using, say, to put on a fender or something like that. The bolt is one-time use only. So those are going to have to be bagged and tagged to be able to make the repair efficient. In the blueprinting process, I like to see the structural repair done before it moves farther down the road, so that when it gets to the next step of the repair, they're already starting to repair instead of continuing to have to take things apart. At that point, all the parts need to be ordered for that vehicle, and the vehicle should be set aside until you have all those parts to be able to put back together. That's another concern that I have now also, and I keep going back to post-COVID, but that's one of the other concerns that I have is parts availability. Here in the US and Canada, the manufacturers have turned around and they've actually had to close facilities. So are we going to run into the same situation we ran into when there was a strike at one of the vehicle manufacturers that that they turn around and don't have the parts available? So you're going to have vehicles sitting and waiting.
Mm-hmm. Touching on that, what about pre and post measuring for the, not estimation, sorry, the process there? What are your thoughts on that sort of aspect of it?
Well, when you look at pre-post repair or scanning, it obviously has to be done on the measuring side. It really should be done on the electronic side. There's a lot of times that there could be code, if you want to call it, in the vehicle, or something wrong in the vehicle, that's not going to make a light go on the dash. The other thing that I'm also seeing is we're right now turning around and looking at the camera system that's in the windshield. There's another calibration situation of that also needs to be calibrated to the vehicle. So we're actually working with one other vendor in a joint venture right now, to where we're collecting that information to be able to add it to our data and to their data for every vehicle that's out there that has a camera, so that we can make sure that we have some dimensions of where that camera needs to be. And as vehicles become more reliant on all these ADAS systems and more government push to have them in the vehicle, I think it's going to be a common practice, where today some people don't feel it's a common practice.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yeah, ADAS has been obviously a huge conversation starter in the industry for the last little bit, and the windshield calibration and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm on the board of directors of Equipment Tool Institute, and I'm a past president. Mm-hmm. And I had been talking to the whole equipment group for years in seminars about how important it was to measure the vehicle, and how that important that what was going to be necessary in the future. And it wasn't until all of a sudden they started to hit the cars that I get the ears from the other people in the industry. The scan tool people, and when the body guy used to get up to speak, they used to get up and walk out of the room. They didn't care about collision repair. And then all of a sudden, when you start talking pre-post scan, it's like, whoa, we're in that business. And I used to start my conversation by saying, please sit back down, because if you don't realize it now, everyone in this room that sells tools is in the collision repair business, because there's not a part on that car that's not either mechanical or collision related. So it's either going to need a mechanic, or it's going to need a body technician.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Got another question here from Carl Jr. He says, given the scope of your industry experience, what new SOPs do you think will emerge and become industry requirements when dealing with customers in the new environment? So whether it be PPE, by appointment only, no drop-in, stuff like that.
I think in the beginning, I hope we get back to normal. Let me put it to you that way. Whatever normal is anymore. Well, I don't know if I knew what normal was before all this started, because you just never know the situation. But I think you're going to find that, yes, there's going to have to be, just like we've seen in the grocery stores here, and I think you have in Canada also, that all of a sudden now you have a piece of glass between the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, same sort of thing.
And I think you're going to find that everyone is going to need to really, when it comes to people in a body shop, they should already know this in advance, because they've been dealing with having the dust that they've been having to deal with all along, dealing with paint fumes, that type of thing. The collision repair business is, it's a dangerous area, if you want to call it. But intaking the vehicle, when you start to intake a vehicle today, I would believe that the estimator is going to have to be more concerned dealing with the customer on a day-to-day basis. That's why drop off and pickup and contactless, if you want to call it, of a vehicle is probably going to be part of the future. I can tell you here, even in our building, for the first 30 days of this COVID situation, because we have people working in the building, because we are an essential business, the company paid for everybody's lunch, and we would have lunch dropped off in our lobby, so no one had to go out and risk any extra exposure. So I think you're going to see people be closer knit, and as I heard someone yesterday on the news say, that maybe your circle of friends may get closer. But I think body shops themselves need to just reassure their customer that they're doing the right thing. that there's things in place to be able to make sure that their car is going to be repaired correctly. It's going to be cleaned correctly before it gets back, and then it's going to be handled handled correctly all along.
Yeah, that's been a big topic of discussion here as well. With the point with the customers. With the glass and whatnot, separation. My mind was blanking there for a second. With the glass and the separation and everything with the customers, and the separation has been a big concern with the social distance and 6 feet and no contact, and it's going to destroy relationships. But what we've seen here is a lot of shops coming closer with their communities and doing donations to hospitals and giving donations to hospitals and offering up PPE and stuff like that. So you're totally right. This is, while it's kind of separating people for now, it's bringing everyone together in the long run, and communities could be closer, and your team will be closer after this. You'll weather the storm together. Well,
yeah, I can tell you that's a fact. I can tell you my family personally, we're eating out a lot more to try and help support our local restaurants that can only do carry out. And in fact, I was able to I found out, since my wife is a school teacher, we found out that some of the students there weren't getting their normal meals that they were getting at the school because they're not in school right now. So I was able to partner up with a local restaurant and be able to get some gift cards out to through the principals of those schools to the families, so that they didn't have to worry. And the restaurant that I partnered with actually also gave the option that they would buy them groceries if they needed groceries. And Carl, my marketing director, also, and myself, we've also participated in some birthday parades. That I don't know if they're doing them I don't know if you've seen any of those up there, but yeah, we've been going out and doing some birthday parades and some things like that to try and help give back to the industry. But I do see now, even when you're walking around outside and you're going in a store or out of a store, people are a lot more friendly. People are saying hi now, where normally they would just bustle right by you. Just don't get
that social contact.
Yeah, just don't get too close.
Yeah. Maybe going back to disinfection, because I feel like we didn't touch on that much. I mean, that's been a huge topic. Disinfection before, it's kind of like pre and post, pre-disinfection, post-disinfection. What sort of, do you have any tips on that sort of touch points? Something that's Spanesi sort of advising shops to do in disinfection?
Like I said, I'm not an expert on disinfection.
Of course, a lot of talk has been about, disinfection on your skin and Lysol and whatnot. We don't need to touch on all that, but just some tips on something that you can maybe do some.
Don't drink the bleach, right?
Don't do it, folks. Don't do it.
but I think a lot of it's common sense. But I think they need to reach out to the company that they're dealing with for their chemicals and their materials, of what's the right process. I mean, if you think of a car today, you may have vinyl seats, you may have cloth seats, you may have leather seats. Obviously, the cloth is going to maintain something, I would think, longer than and be harder to get rid of than if you were wiping off a leather seat, for instance, or a dashboard. So I think there's in the future, and I know just on social media, I see technicians post pictures of the inside of vehicles that is like, boy, you shouldn't even be sitting in that car. It's just disgusting dirty. And you start to see that. I think that those particular vehicles are not going to be intaked into the body shop, if you want to call it, in the future. We all need to protect ourselves. I even got to the point where both our personal vehicles have gloves when we're going to pump gas. You don't know who the person was before you.
Exactly. That's the same thing here. We've got people crafting masks, and people in my house have made some masks for us, little homemade ones and gloves and whatnot. You can't be too careful. We've got a question here that, yes, you're all ready. Perfect. You're styling over there. All right. I kind of touched on this earlier about how Canada feels like it kind of adopted, it might have seen a faster adoption of online repair services because of COVID. Now, this person wants to know if the industry was already moving towards some sort of contactless process, or if you felt that there was some sort of progression towards a contactless procedure before COVID.
I think this was something that was coming before this all came down. We could see that there was a lot more online estimating, or the customer taking the photographs and submitting them for the estimate. One thing that I was really took me back a little bit was an announcement here from Nationwide Insurance that they're closing their claims offices that they used to have in 6 states here, and everything's going to be done virtually. So all the employees that they had typically working in an office building are now all going to be working from home. Which gives you another thing that you have to be concerned about, because now you have to look at an employee accountability.
Yeah.
It's not an easy process to be able to work from home.
Yeah. They also said that, I mean, the point that the convenience of it's for the convenience of the customer, that they don't have to alter the schedule, come in, you know, deal with the claim and have to do that or anything. Because the average person in Canada at least suffers a collision every 7 years, or a statistic, something around those lines. So every 7 years they won't have to come in and deal with that procedure, but it kind of brings it forward into more of a modern sort of state, like with the online ease of access, rather, should I say. So do you think it kind of puts the collision repair industry ahead of the game in regards to customer service in an aspect like that?
Well, I would say that you can have a closer contact with your customer faster. We're finding in the industry as a whole that everybody's doing a lot of stuff from social media anyway. What's the first thing you do when you get up in the morning? Do you check your work email, or do you check Facebook or Instagram or something like that? And you start to look at how does your customer turn around and want to be contacted? I have customers I deal with all the time through text message. I call them on the phone, they'll text me back. Don't have time to talk, and they'll text through whatever the information is, and work that way. So I think the online process for training in certain situations, I think it's going to be good. But if you're trying to, one of the things that we did here also is I did a 1-hour webinar for the Collision Repair Education Foundation to all the schools in their network, because trying to teach collision repair through a format like this is not going to work. You need hands-on.
Yep.
So, and I did it for a couple other schools to where I went on for an hour and discussed some different things that they could look to do, and how, you know, try and supplement what they're doing while they're not doing anything right now. And I think that's one of the other things that's suffering right now is our school programs for collision repair are pretty much at a standstill. Sure, they can do some work through a webinar or something like this, but I can tell you myself personally, just in the past 6 weeks, I've had to learn 6 different webinar type formats to be able to do presentations like this. Something that, you know, I had only used 1 or 2 different formats before. So we're all learning through this process of how the future is going to be.
Yes, it's kind of, the nice thing about it is that everyone's in it together. There's kind of some comfort in that, some fear and comfort.
Right.
All right. Moving on to the next question here. At this person's shop, they repair 1/4 ton and 7-ton trucks using a tramp gauge to do the measuring, and they're looking for an upgrade. So they're looking for a basic measuring gauge, maybe even an advanced measuring gauge out there in the body shop industry that would be the best for them.
Well, that's one thing I can tell you about our touch measuring system. And you know, I didn't come on this to be able to give a commercial, but when you look at our touch measuring system could measure whatever you point it to. That's why we call it a touch. And it does have software to be able to do heavy truck. So we have the ability to be able to measure heavy truck all the way down to, you know, the smallest car. So they can reach out to us, and we can point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Also got a question from Facebook here. How many tools do you have to buy from Spanesi to get a free shop remodel? Somebody in Ohio wants to open his own shop.
There's nothing free in life, not even that free lunch. You're paying for it somewhere.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tim. I think we're going to wrap things up now. The 45-minute mark was kind of where we were planning on hitting. So thank you so much for everyone participating. We really appreciate Tim joining us today.
I really appreciate doing this, and I'm glad you picked me to be number one so we could be the guinea pig to figure out how to make this all work right. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. We will have a recording of the live show available on our site either tomorrow or on Friday in the coming days. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. And thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
And check us out at www.spanesi.com and check out our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Like us. We like you. We're all in this together.
Yeah, be sure to check out Spanesi and tell Tim what a great job he did today on the webinar. They've got some great stuff, like we said, 360, so everything for the body shop. Didn't come on here to do a commercial, but we've got to, give them the recognition they deserve here in the industry. So thanks so much, everyone. We hope you have a good one.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.